This short film is about Masonic banners in Buckinghamshire. We'll look at the history of banners, a glimpse into the province of Buckinghamshire, and answer those questions about why we're making a book at all. So what is a banner? According to Heraldry by Boutel, a good source for things relating to banners and flags and pennants, it's a square or oblong armorial flag hung by one of its sides. Well, that's fine as a starting point, but when we reflect on banners in Buckinghamshire, they're slightly different. So let's generalise so that we understand. A banner has loops of cloth across the top. It hangs vertically from a horizontal crossbar. You can see from the photograph there are examples of flags, pennants, and right in the centre is a banner. When we think of banners from history, we might be reminded of things like the Battle of the Banners from the Orange Order in Northern Ireland, or possibly from the suffragette movement, or even indeed mine workers and colliery workers, and indeed brass bands, all of whom had banners to differentiate themselves, to celebrate their message, and to act as a rally point. Banners actually go back much further into history, and quite often we find that they have some military as well as historic significance. Think of the Chinese, Indian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Egyptian and Sumerian armies. All of those paraded their banners in battle. Even Highlanders from Scotland did this. Soldiers would rally round their king or leader, then rally round their banner, and then ultimately defend themselves against their foes. Possibly one of the most commonplace banners is that held by the legionnaire in the picture. You might be interested to see the Parachute Regiment's lodge banner. As you can see, it has the two pillars, something that we'll touch on later in this film. During the Third Crusades, between 1096 and 1099, many Scottish guilds took their banners overseas with them. In the illustration that you can see, which comes from the British Museum, you can see many banners and men and materials being loaded onto a ship, ready to set sail. The intention was to take banners and men into battle. The main banner that the Scottish guilds used was one called the Banner of the Holy Ghost. And these men were known as the Knights of the Holy Ghost. Their intention had been to place on the walls of Jerusalem the banners, emblazoned with the motto, "In thy good pleasure built thou the walls of Jerusalem." Now, let's move forward in time. We're still in Scotland, and we're still with the guilds. Let's look at the blue blanket. This dates back to 1482. The original banner was 10 foot by 6 foot. It was quite a thing. You might notice in the top right hand corner is the saltire. Many believe this to be a Scottish symbol when in actual fact it's a Roman symbol, and it's found as early as the 4th century on their coinage. Now these blue blankets, as they were known, were taken into battle, and one Scottish guild, the Hammermen of Edinburgh, were well renowned for being carers and keepers of these blue blankets. It's said even to this day that there are lodges and guilds in Scotland that hold examples of the blue banner. Now let's travel south. You're in Yorkshire. It's 1536. Imagine the scene. Henry VIII and his men are breaking up Catholicism and dissolving the monasteries. There's pillaging, there's burning, and there's discontent. Robert Aske, a lawyer cum leader, shown in the picture, rallied men from what was said to be the shires of Yorkshire for the most serious of all Tudor rebellions. He was supported by the monks, who brought with them banners, and as they walked into towns and villages to gather support, they would raise their banners, and these banners would act as emblems. Again, a rally point, a way in which people would recognise who they were and what they were there for. It was an act of defence, an act of defiance. Sadly, it would ultimately fail. Robert Aske, would be executed in London. So now let's delve into Masonic banners in particular. The earliest known Masonic banner is that of the York Lodge. It was presented to Grand Lodge in 1776. As you can see by the image on screen, it's not exactly a banner, and that's because all that remains is a reproduction on premium heavy stock paper. The original is lost. What we do know is that there seems to have been an adoption of banners in craft lodges, following the general principles of arms and heraldry of the nobility of medieval guilds. Now let's move to 1871 in France. Imagine the scene. You're in Paris. The city is surrounded by Adolphe Thiers, leader of the counter-revolutionary Versailles army. The city's been pounded by cannon and mortar. You're a Mason. You're one of 55 lodges of 10,000 brethren, all dressed in full regalia. You're marching through the city. You're going to meet the Paris Commune. Your leader addresses the Paris Commune and asks for the opportunity to address those people who seek to bring down the walls of the city and invade and bring about an end to this revolution. The leaders of the revolution say, "Fine, address the people and then go and address the army. You have our permission." So the Masons do indeed walk through the city. They walk past the Champs-Élysées, past the Arc de Triomphe. They send a balloon into the air and drop leaflets of their manifesto. The manifesto reads, "In the presence of the painful events before which all of France wails, in the presence of the precious blood that flows in torrents, Masonry, which represents the idea of humanity, and which has spread itself throughout the world, comes again to affirm before you, government, and members of the assembly, before you, members of the commune, those great principles which are the law, and which should be the law of every man with a heart of a man. Liberty, equality, fraternity, solidarity. Masonry preaches peace among men, and in the name of humanity proclaims the inviolability of human life. Masonry curses all wars. It wails over civil wars. It has the duty and the right to come among you and say, in the name of humanity, in the name of fraternity, in the name of the devastated fatherland, stop the spilling of blood. We ask this of you. We beg you to hear our appeal. We don't come to you to dictate a program, for we rely upon your wisdom. We simply say to you, stop the spilling of precious blood that flows on both sides, and lay down the basis for a definitive peace that will be the dawn of a new future. And this is what we energetically ask of you. And if our voice isn't going to be listened to, we tell you that humanity and the fatherland demand and impose it." They then took their banners and placed them on the ramparts surrounding the city. The leader of the counter-revolution army of Versailles, Adolphe Thiers, sent a deputation to speak to the Masons, to ask why they put their banners on the ramparts. When they explained, the deputation returned to the leader, and with regret, it was ultimately rejected. The cannons were unleashed again, the walls fell, the revolution ended, and many Masons lost their lives. Now this is a melancholy tale, but it does speak volumes, one, of the brotherly love that Masonry offers, and two, the willingness to sacrifice oneself for a greater good. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, happening at the same time, was the phenomenon of the North American sideshow banner. So imagine that you're in a city in the Midwest or a town. Travelling sideshows would come, it would be a circus, and it would be spectacles and things of interest. The banners would be brought to towns to demonstrate the delights that would behold once the travelling circus or those sideshows arrived. Imagine, wouldn't you wish to go and see the Midget Prince, Hans, or Zoma the Sadist? Maybe the Frog Boy, 36 inches, tall and alive. He never walks, he hops like a frog. Or possibly the Daughter of Undetermined Sex. And my own favourite, the Rock and Roll Burro. Cookie, he's alive and he has rocking chair feet. If ever you were going to ride the goat, surely you'd want to practice on Cookie first. So when we started taking photographs of the banners, it became quite apparent that it was quite a mission really. They were in different states of repair. They were hung up, they were laid down. We found them tucked away in cupboards and boxes, and some of them actually needed running repairs because of their different ages. You know, imagine there's a range of over 100 years, and it was quite a challenge. Some of them, by virtue of their location, meant that the photography had to be handheld. Other times we were able to use a tripod. We were very fortunate to have the expertise of Brother David Thrower, an expert with over 20 years of professional photography, and his eye for detail ensured that each and every single banner was captured in glorious details. The challenges we had were lighting. Imagine some of the lodge rooms are very dark, some of the banners are very worn. One of the biggest ones that we hadn't anticipated in terms of a challenge was wind. Because we were trying to capture these images in low light, it meant a long exposure, which meant that the banners had to be absolutely still. Now, it was only when you wanted that stillness that you could actually see the banners waving, so we would have to hold them until the very last second, and then when Dave pressed a shutter, we'd step away from the banner and keep our fingers crossed that they wouldn't flap too much and indeed blur. We decided that whilst we were taking photographs of the banners, it would be quite nice to capture images of the actual temples themselves, because after visiting the first one that we'd never seen before, we realised each and every single lodge room is different. There were stained glass, there were brass, there were wood carvings, there were inset, inlaid wood. They were quite stunning, and we wanted to ensure that there was a record kept of these. If, heaven forbid, anything should happen to these buildings, at least there would be a record of some of the beautiful features that were in there. And we also wanted to ensure that those people that we met who were extremely proud of their lodge rooms had that opportunity to show it to other brethren from the province. So we took great care to capture lots of the incidental images as well. This is Linslade that's on screen at the minute. Beautiful stained glass and brass, a stunning location. And indeed, many of the items that we found in there were unique to each lodge. Wherever we went, each lodge was slightly different. Although the layout obviously had to conform to something that was standard, they were unique. And we certainly would hope that those people who buy the book and see the difference of each of these lodge rooms may choose to create their own Masonic bucket list and to tick off a visit to each of these lodges, if only so that they can experience what it's like to have a meeting in some of these stunning rooms. Certainly the acoustics and the ambience of the rooms and the decor really add to the experience that you'll have when you attend one of the meetings. It's surprising how, as a Mason, you might take a banner for granted and you might not ever get close to it to look at the detail. It's something that we obviously did, and with Brother David's expertise in photography, we've been fortunate enough to pick out exquisite detail in some of the banners. And as you can see, sometimes it's wear and tear, but this is Masonic filigree, you could say. These are details that are captured by time, and certainly the expertise of the seamstresses and painters that produce these banners is absolutely incredible. And we wanted to celebrate that art history because we know there's over 100 years of creativity and artistic capability in some of these things, and it's as diverse as tatting and braidwork, mosaics, embossing, painting, oil painting, wooden banners, as you can see from the Ivor Lodge. The iconography is stunning, Industria's banner is fabulous. The detail and the relief that we found in some of the banners made them look three-dimensional, and we hope that the lodge book, as well as telling a history of why the lodge chose to have the iconography on the banner as they did, will allow people to really see the detail in there and challenge them at some point when they're next in a Masonic meeting to go up to their banner and just have a good close look at it. Because what we can say is the detail and the devotion that's been put into the creation of each and every single one of these banners speaks volume for the care and attention that lodges have, and indeed the craftsmanship and seeking out those experts who can provide a faithful reproduction of what the original design was is a challenge. You know, many of the organisations and individuals that created these banners are no longer here, so these banners act as testament to their greatness as well as those of the lodge. So there are some most obvious types of banners, and we've tried to categorise them just for interest really. We found that of the 119 banners that we took photographs of, over 70 of them were needlepoint and less than 30 were actually brushstroke. There were some that were mixed medium, but certainly needlepoint was the most popular medium that was used for making banners. And in terms of popularity of design, where we expected the heraldic shield to take first place, it didn't. It came in third place. The swan, that's synonymous with Buckinghamshire as a county, came in second place. There were 26 lodges that chose to have that on their banner, but coming in first place were buildings and villages, things that were specific and symbolic to the area. It might be a church, it could be a forest, it could be a hill, it could be a building within a town or area, or indeed a bridge or an industrial object, but it was something that was very specific and very natural. That came in first place. And in terms of the secondary images that we found that embellished the banners, obviously the square and compasses came in top, followed closely by pillars, and then 38 banners actually had mottos on them as well. When it comes to taking photographs of banners and doing the research, you do need to be a bit of a historian, and you need to pick out interesting things, because the book ought to be an interesting read. And one thing that we observed were the pillars that appeared on many banners. 41 of the 119 banners that we photographed actually had pillars on their banners, and 31 of those had the celestial body, which is the stars if you like, and the moon, on the right hand side. Well, there's nothing so unusual about that, you might say. Well, what was interesting, however, was that there were 4 that had the terrestrial body on the right hand side. Why did they have it on the opposite side? We don't know. It could have been a mistake. There could have been a very real reason. We may never know, but we'll certainly seek to find that answer to that question. We found that 3 of the 119 banners didn't have a top at all on their banner, and interestingly, Orion Lodge, one of my personal favourites, not least because it's the only banner in Buckinghamshire that doesn't have its lodge number on the banner, but also because it has a marauding drunken soldier on it, and finally the only banner that's decided to have its own unique interpretation of what a square and compasses should look like, incorporating something that may be a stag's head or an article of clothing, but because it just doesn't feature anything on the top of the pillars. There are 3 banners, Sayre Green, the province of Buckinghamshire's Sunnymead Lodge, and Longville Lodge, that chose to have 3 pillars on there. Now there is a reason for that, and any Mason who's had his certificate will be able to answer that question for you. Finally, there were some lodges that just decided to throw the book out the window. Misbourne Lodge, they decided to have a sun instead of the earth. Pegasus and Penn and Tyler's Green decided that they would have Saturn instead of the moon and stars. And most interestingly of all, the Observatory Lodge in Slough decided that they weren't going to have a moon and stars at all, they were just going to have 2 earths. As we journeyed through the province, taking photographs of banners, there were some that caught our attention, and we'd like to honour them with a series of awards. Now, although we're singling certain lodges out, that doesn't discount any other lodge banner as being anything lesser, but these are just some ones of interest. So first, our award for the most weathered banner that has to go to Watling Street, as we experienced when we brought it down from the rafters and hung it on a crossbar ready to be photographed. It literally fell apart in our hands. We understand the lodge are trying to have it repaired, and we wish them well with it. We love that banner, and because of its frailness, we feel it deserves an award. The next category is the most unique banner, and this goes to Amersham Lodge, and the reason for that is their banner is effectively a piece of blue leather that's been affixed to a hard piece of wood, and that leather's been embossed. It's been gold foiled, silver foiled, and it's been printed and painted. It's exquisite. It's unique. There are, to our best knowledge, no other banners in this province, and indeed maybe other provinces, that has this style of working. So it is most unique. Our next category is peas in a pod, and this goes to both Eton Lodge and Temple Manor Lodge. And the reason why we chose these is evident in the picture. As you can see, Temple Manor Lodge is the daughter lodge of Eton Lodge. You can see that by the numbers. What was most interesting about the Eton Lodge banner is that it was actually painted by one of its first members, Brother Victoriano Codino Langlin, who was a very accomplished painter from Barcelona in 1844. It was presented on the 20th of October 1894, only 6 months after he was initiated. His special gift as a painter was the ability to paint canvas to simulate tapestry, and that technique is readily apparent in the banner, and we think it's just beautiful. Our next category is Banner from Another Mother Award, and this goes to Cliveden Lodge. Cliveden Lodge number 7944 was consecrated at Freemasonry Hall on May the 29th in 1964. The founders lived in Slough and the Burnham areas. Their names are recorded on the Cliveden Lodge banner. Viscount William, or Bill III Astor, was one of the petitioners. Cliveden House had been his family seat for many years. He agreed to the founders' request to use Astor's name and the coat of arms in the lodge crest. What was most interesting is actually what's on there, and that's the reason why they've won the title of Banner from Another Mother. What could have possibly led this particular lodge to want to put a fur trapper and a red Indian onto their banner, as well as indeed a silver eagle? The reason being was that the arms of the Viscountcy were based on William Waldorf Astor's grandfather, who made the family fortune through Manhattan property. The family weren't easily able to settle in America and did return home to Buckinghamshire, and indeed brought back with them memories of those times, and that's the reason why it appears on the banner. There are other interesting stories associated with this particular lodge, and more will be revealed in the book. As well as those that we've individually picked out, we thought it might be quite nice to have some worthy mentions, and these are banners that we felt were exquisite in their detail and really demonstrated some area of expertise and beauty. So St Martin's Lodge, if you ever have the opportunity to look at their banner, it's one of the most heavily reliefed banners that we've come across, and it's a beautiful image of a fair maiden offering something to a prince on a horse. Just beautiful. There's also Herschel's Lodge, which has a golden phoenix sitting astride the earth. Another beautiful example of a gold embroidery relief work. Just beautiful. There's Industrial Lodge. We like this because it looked like a Pink Floyd album cover, or maybe something from a Frankie Goes to Hollywood album from the 1980s. Beautiful iconography and very well produced. And of course Concordia Lodge is a great example of heraldry. As we said, we expected to see more heraldry. We thought it would be the most popular of all styles, but it isn't. Yet this is fabulous. It has everything you'd expect. The lion, the unicorn. Sitting atop is the Swan of Buckinghamshire. It's beautifully painted, slightly worn, but all the better for it. A fantastic example. Our next category is the Banner for Hard Knocks, and that award goes to the Scientific Lodge number 840. We were really taken by this lodge, and indeed we met many of the brethren, great people. This particular lodge was founded by those people involved in railway management and manufacturing in Wolverton only 21 years after the town was formed as a world's first railway town. Obviously, railway imagery would be prominent. The bridge that's on the banner is just north of Wolverton. Sadly, it's no longer around. It's been replaced by a brick one in the 1890s. The locomotive is a generic model from that time. The Arm and Hammer is a clear reference to the foundries and carriage works in Wolverton, where the founding master, John McConnell, was superintendent of works. And the fabulous Victorian motto at the bottom of the banner reads, "Mind moves the mass." It was a very clear Victorian engineering principle. Wonderful example. Truly deserved of the title, Banner for Hard Knocks. Our final award goes to Sunnymead Lodge. It's the Give It Large award. And we felt they were entitled and much deserved of this because they felt that it wasn't enough to just have one banner. They would have two side banners as well that would feature the worshipful masters who took the seat of King Solomon. Fabulous. But we have pondered what will happen once the one on the left is filled. Will they add more on there? And if so, when will it stop? Will it keep going and going? I do hope I live long enough to actually see how they manage that. But certainly, as it stands today, they gave it large. Well done, Sunnymead. I do hope you've enjoyed listening to recollections of the work that we did on making the banner book and some of our favourite pieces. We'd like to thank you for your support and ask only this. If your lodge has yet to provide information to us for our book, please would you be so kind to contact your secretary and help us. The amount of detail that goes into this book stands as testament to how proud we indeed are of our individual lodges and the province as a whole. Our hope is that in time, other provinces will indeed take up the challenge to make a book about their province lodge banners. We know that Bedfordshire have already done similar, so we have 2 provinces under our belt. Could there be more? My hope is that within my living lifetime, Grand Lodge receive a copy from every province of every lodge banner that existed at the time of publication. I thank you for your attention and your support, and do hope that once our book is published, you'll buy a copy. Thank you.